so serious for a second.
Hey everyone. A little awkward start. Hi everyone, I'm Alex.
And I'm Ben, and this is Married with Dragons.
Yeah, so we're up to episode 2, which is fantastic.
Woohoo!
Thank you everyone who stuck around for our very first episode last week. So tonight we've got a little bit to talk about.
Yeah.
So we'll be running
big
through
topic.
running through some D&D news, some dice talk, some character sheet talk, and
Great for people who are wanting to try and get a bit of a grasp on D&D, who maybe haven't tried it before. This is a really good, I suppose, introduction to the game's base mechanics, really.
Yeah, definitely. And we also have a prize to give away for this for tonight's stream. So we have a hardcover of the Monster Manual. So we will be drawing that at the end of, close to the end of the stream. And pretty much to win it, you just have to stay active in chat. So we will mention it throughout the stream, and also just before we announce it for any lurkers, so they can do a quick little hello or quick little I want to win this.
It'll be in it to win it. That Monster Manual. Flip through, find out all the tips and tricks about all the beasties. Well, not all the beasties, but a lot of the beasties in D&D.
Most of the beasties.
Most of the beasties.
There's a lot out there. So, yeah, we'll be giving that away. It is worldwide. So, yeah, all you got to do is just be active in chat. Say whatever you want.
Hang out with us and enjoy the show, really. It's about all you've got to do.
Exactly. So, to start off with the D&D news, we... not we, but Wizards of the Coast.
I wish we. That'd be cool if we did it.
Yeah. So Wizards of the Coast have brought out a brand new book that releases tomorrow.
Yes, Candlekeep Mysteries.
Yeah, I want to say that a little slower. You said that so fast.
Candlekeep Mysteries.
Candlekeep Mysteries. So, yeah, what's that all about?
So basically, it's not a campaign book as such. What it is it's a collection of 17, I believe, one-shots. So for people who aren't familiar with D&D, a one-shot is basically a short campaign that is condensed into a single session. So they're great little mini adventures that you can run without having to put all the time and effort into a big, lengthy campaign. So fantastic if you're maybe you want to try DMing for the first time. Maybe you've got a group of people who want to try D&D but don't really want to commit to a full-blown campaign. I, for one, am very excited, especially about the alternate cover.
Oh, yeah. We're a big fan of alternate covers. It's like steel books in video games. Alternate covers are just, I think they're gorgeous.
Awesome. And this one is nice. It's a very nice
it's very kind of like fantasy library kind of book, like old library style.
Well, that is literally the entire theme of this book that's been released. Each one shot, each adventure is actually a book that is the key to an adventure that you can go on. And so basically all of the mini one-shot adventures take place within the Library of Candlekeep.
Yeah.
Hence the name.
Exactly. So how long does a one-shot usually go for?
Well, a one-shot is primarily designed to last for a single session. So, I mean, it depends on how you run it, really. It could go for a couple of hours. Could go for, 8 hours or more, depending on what the players get up to and how you do it, but basically it's designed to be finished in a single session, as sort of like a bit of a taste of D&D, and I'm certainly very excited. The other big bonus with it as well is that it's ranges from level 1 to level 16. So there's a really, really big range of adventures that you can do in there as well, which is great because you can start at, if you want to start at a level 1 character, you can start level 1. But say if you've always wanted to play a level 15 character, but you've never been in a campaign long enough to get there, or if you've never, had an opportunity to play one, make a level 15 character, chuck it in the one shot, bam, away you go.
So you can start at any level.
You can start at any level. That's the beauty of the one shots, is that you don't have to, that you don't actually have to play through them as a story. They're all actually separate adventures that you can just jump into whenever you like.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that releases tomorrow. So for anyone that is in the part of the world where you're a day behind compared to us Australians. So it's
basically everywhere.
Pretty much. So March 26th it releases, and I'm super excited. I've never played a one-shot before, so it'd be great to, see what it's like to do a very smaller, condensed down campaign compared to a year-long campaign, which is what we've been doing.
Yeah, and the beauty with one-shots as well is if you've got a character concept or a character idea that you really want to try, but you thought, I don't really know if I want to commit that to an entire campaign, you can give it a go in the one-shot, because there's no... It's kind of like, D&D without the commitment. There's no commitment to the long term. You can try something new, try a different play style that you haven't played before, and at the end of the night, you're done.
So
and then if you really liked it, you can adapt it to a campaign.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a little taster of the D&D campaigns out there.
And, for any DMs who really enjoy the one-shot adventures that are in there, you can always incorporate them into separate campaigns as well. So, if there's an adventure that you think, that sounds heaps of fun, and you're already running a campaign, what you can do is adapt that one-shot, adapt that adventure, put it into the campaign you're already running, and have it as a little side quest.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
And it also comes with a map.
Oh, map.
Yes, a map of the library of Candlekeep.
So would it be good for someone that has never played D&D? I would say, just from the sounds of it, yes, because that way you're not committing to a whole entire campaign.
See, I think it would be perfect for someone who specifically hasn't tried DMing before.
Okay.
Because it gives you a really, really great... It gives you, like, as we said, a big bunch of adventures that you can run without, there's not that pressure on you to be able to, commit to a long-term campaign. You don't have a heap of planning to do as the DM, as the Dungeon Master, because it's simply just a single session. So it's really good, sort of, if you're wanting to ease into being a DM or being a Dungeon Master, it's also a really good way to do that.
Yeah.
If you were just starting to get into D&D, though, I would certainly recommend the Monster Manual and the Player's Handbook be the first books you pick up.
Yeah, but as for the first campaign to really go try and test out, you would enjoy a campaign. I think a one-shot would be a really good way to go, because, that way you don't feel bad for doing... Say you do a couple of sessions into quite a long campaign, you don't really have to feel bad or guilty for being like, oh, no, I'm out, guys. Sorry. And that, without hindering the DM's, progress or... Yeah.
And, as I said, if you want to try out DMing, but you're not too sure if it's for you, one-shots are perfect, because at the end of the night, you're done. If you don't want to do it anymore, you're done. That's it. It's all good.
So, one-shots are good, to ease yourself into some D&D campaigns. Especially if you're not too sure if you're going to like it, if it's for you.
And one-shots can also be a good opportunity to... And it depends, obviously, you want to work out with the group you're playing with beforehand. One-shots can also be a bit of a fun opportunity to play something a bit silly. Like play a bit of a strange character idea, or have some, funny role-play sort of concepts, because... as we said, it's not going to be going for a long period of time. So you can have a bit of fun with it, try something a bit strange, try something a bit left field, and, just have a bit of fun for the single night or single day or whenever you want to play it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so on to the next thing. I was just thinking about today a little story that...
Story time!
It always plays on my mind whenever I play D&D, and whenever I think about D&D, is how important note-taking is. Now, I am... not a good example for a note taker. I like to take notes here and there, but half the time I forget. I just don't do it.
Having played with you, as a player as well, sometimes I think that you also aren't 100% sure what to take notes of.
Yeah.
I've noticed you'll take notes of an NPC's hair colour, but then you'll not write down the big plot hook.
I won't write down the important information. I'll be like, oh yes, today was especially raining. This must be a sign, and I'll write that down, and then I'll look at it later and be like,
it's a skill to develop.
I don't know what that's about. So I was in a friend's campaign, and our party had this secret mission to go and infiltrate a NPC's house. So pretty much we rocked up. Half of us went around the back door, while the other half of us went to the front door to kind of set up a distraction, go in for dinner, and and meet the NPC.
Also, for anyone who is new to D&D, when we say NPC, letters NPC stands for non-playable character. Basically, that's just any person who the players interact in the campaign that's not a player. So basically, anyone that the DM is running is an NPC.
So we're sent on this mission from another NPC, so the Burgomaster, which is a mayor of the town, and it was a secret mission.
Super secret.
No one needed to know. We just had to go in there all sly, undercover, undercover agents going into this house, which we did. But I think there was a little bit of a gap on sessions with this one because I did not write down that it was a secret mission. So we got there, and the NPC was kind of like,
So at this point as well, it's split party.
Oh yeah, split party.
So we've got a couple of us, sneaking into the house around the back, and a few of you having a nice distraction.
Yeah, and I can actually remember I really wanted to be part of the sneaky part, like the distractions. I thought, I can do this. I'm really good at diversions. So, we went in and we sat down to dinner. And, the character pretty much stated like, so the Burger Master must have sent you. Now, this is where everyone...
And this is a big shock.
Yeah, we're just like, oh, well, the other characters were just kind of like, no. And me, straight away, without a beat, without a break, I'm just like, yes, the Burger Master did send us. And
straight up blows the cover.
Blows up the cover, and everyone lost it at the table because...
I
forgot that it was meant to be a secret, and I'm like, why is everyone laughing? And the players were just like,
well, I was sitting next to you at the table at the time, so I was a player in this game as well, and I was part of the sneaky group. So like my character wasn't there, but obviously we were sitting at the same table, so I heard what was going on. So I was physically sitting next to you at the time, and all that went through my head is, I don't know if this is too obscure, but has anyone seen that Mr. Burns meme where he's like, yes? That's basically what I saw happen. This character, which we think's a big baddie, the plot reveal is like, so I know the Burger Master said you, and Alex is just like, yes. Well, goodbye, secret agents.
I ruined it all because I did not write down that it was meant to be a secret mission.
You didn't... Alright, you may have ruined the secret part of the secret mission, but you didn't ruin it all because it made for a great story.
It did.
And at the end of the day, that's what you want out of D&D, is a funny story. And I can remember everyone just absolutely losing it.
And I think this was also on the same session. I just had a thought. I'm also not very good at being put on the spot. So,
I know.
So the NPC wanted to know...
this was a different NPC.
Yeah, what we were called. And I didn't know what to say. So I said, we are the Waynes.
And literally, it was just that split moment. And for the rest of the entire campaign, our party referred to ourselves as the Waynes.
The Waynes.
For some reason. We were, Batman's family, I guess.
I don't know what went in my head, but
It didn't sound very badass either.
Didn't.
When you meet someone or you accomplish something and someone be like, thank you, the Waynes.
That's exactly right.
It was never Waynes, it was always the Waynes.
The Waynes, not Waynes. So, so we all called ourselves Wayne whenever being introduced to someone sly.
Upside from that funny little dinner incident, you have learned the importance of taking notes.
Yes, I have. It's, more important than I think, because, that way you don't reveal your party's big secret, you don't ruin missions, and you don't call yourself silly names like the Waynes.
Yeah, I actually quite liked the name. I'm not going to call that a mistake. I thought it was quite a funny bit of the story that, as I said, makes a funny story out of it.
Yeah.
So it didn't actually derail the campaign at all.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. Good times. It suited the whole Batman-esque themes. Name certainly suited the spoopy campaign.
Yeah, it did. It was a very, very spoopy campaign.
Oh dear, I don't think you're ever going to live that one down.
No, I'm not.
Well, I like that story. That's one of my favourite stories of yours.
Yeah, I think I have many of me blundering my way through campaigns.
In fairness, I think that there is an art to taking notes as a player.
Oh,
because you don't want to be taking excessive amounts of notes to the point where you're almost not paying attention to the game because you're taking notes the whole time.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line between writing stuff down and making sure that you're keeping names and important plot hooks written down for your memory, but there's you don't want to take one note a session and come back next week and be like, what the hell does this mean?
Exactly.
Oh dear.
Okay, so I mentioned at the start of the stream that we're going to cover some dice and character sheets. So for all you very new interested players, this is going to be
soon to be D&D addicts.
Yes. This is going to be really handy for you. So, dice. Where to begin? They're super addicting.
Yeah, they are very addictive. Very addictive. I can remember when I first was getting into it, I bought my first set and I'm like, one set, all I need. Sweet.
I think you're onto.
I've never been so wrong.
I think you're onto your second sack.
I've
of
got
dice.
a massive sack of dice here. Have a big sack of dice. So yeah, they are very addictive, which you can get in a bit of a rabbit hole a little bit. But it's important to understand. So if you haven't played a tabletop role-playing game or Dungeons and Dragons before, we do use abbreviations a lot for our dice.
Yeah. Now, when playing the game, also when you first start, you might think all the dice is going to be quite intimidating, but it's not. No. Half the time, you might only use 3 in the whole campaign.
Yeah, it depends on your character, really. Yeah. It depends on what's what's required of the situation in each different type of character. The most common one, and I think it's important for anyone who hasn't played before as well to understand, whenever we refer to a dice, we call it D, so the letter D for dice, followed by whatever number, however many sides that dice has. So for example, the most used dice in D&D is a D20. So D20 means it has 20 sides. So
and 20 numbers.
You roll the dice and you can get between 1 and 20. That is the most common. That is what this, for anyone who is watching, this big dice pillow looks like. It's got 20 sides. I believe it's called a dodecahedron.
Yeah, I would not be able to pronounce that, but yeah.
So yeah, that's your main one. So then going down to the seven dice in a set. So going down from your D20, you've got a... when I say going down, you've got a D100. Technically, that is only has 10 sides, but it's got it's double digits. So it goes from 10 to technically goes from 0 to 90. So it goes 00, then 10, all the way up to 90.
Yeah.
So you use that combined with a D10, which has 1 to 10 on it, to get percentages.
That dice, there's 2 of those dice in a set, just one with double figures and one with single figures, but still a 10-sided dice.
Yeah, so they're both 10-sided dice, but one is double digits, one is single digits.
Yeah.
So you got those 2, and then going down from there, technically you've got a D12, which has 12 sides on it as well, which technically is higher than the 100. So you've got D20, D12, the 2 D10 type dice, a D6. A D6 is your normal, regular, everyday Monopoly dice, 6 sides. And then finally, a D8, D6, and then a D4. For anyone who doesn't know what a D4 is, if you've stepped on Lego and thought that was painful, you ain't seen nothing yet. Standing on a D4, because a D4 is a pyramid. So standing on a D4 is like just standing on like
a spear.
Just a spear of plastic. It is unbelievably painful. Would not recommend. So yeah, those are the 7 types of dice: D4, D6, D8, D10, D10, D12, and D20. Yeah. So whenever we refer to a dice as a D10 or whatever, hopefully now you at least know what we're talking about.
Yeah, so the most common used dice is the D20, which is what you usually use for your pretty much all of your rolls, apart from spells.
Yeah, basically anything that's got like an attack or an ability, an attack, a spell, an ability, something like that, you use your other dice for.
Yep.
But any other check in the game really is, mostly 90% of them is using a D20.
Yeah. Now there's a good question in the chat. What's your favourite dice?
Oof. Look, it really depends in what context you're talking about. I mean,
like, your favourite type of dice or in your collection?
I was going to say, is this like from the dice in the set?
Maybe we'll do both. What's your favourite type of dice? And what is your favourite dice in your dice set in your collection?
Oh, look, it's tough. I mean, I think the D20 is always fun because I like the whole fun part about rolling dice is the chance, the risk and reward. So anything with more risk and reward is always fun. I also love rolling the percentile. So rolling the 2 D10s to get like between 1 and 100. I really find that quite exciting as well. 100 different possibilities.
Yep.
What about you?
D20 pretty much. I think that's what I mainly use. My favourite type.
Most fun to roll.
My favourite set of dice though is probably the quartz dice that you got me, which are made out of quartz stones. So they're like a pinkish watermelon colour. And they stay
very pretty.
Yeah, they're very, very pretty. I don't usually roll them often because I don't want to ruin them. So they sit in my jewelry drawer.
They're not to be put in a bag with other dice because they could get damaged. So they're quite special. I think as far as like actual dice sets go, my favourites vary because if a dice set doesn't roll well and they've been naughty, I get quite a sour taste from using that. I don't like to use it for a while, I should say, and so I use a different set. I've got to say, one of my favourite sets of dice that I have, I love my metal ones, obviously, but one of my favourite sets that I have is one of the earlier sets I bought. It's a watermelon dice set, and the beauty of them is they have the 3 colours, so like the green for like the outside of the watermelon, the white for like the rindy bit, and the red. But in the red, it's actually got little black dots in there, and it looks like a water. It's so cool. It's great.
I really like that set too. I kind of wish I got a pair for myself as well.
All mine. So yeah, those are the basics about dice. Dice are pretty self-explanatory. As soon as you start rolling them, you start picking up really, really easy. One thing I guess that can be quite daunting to a new player, which is really the first thing you need to do as a new player, is look at the character sheet.
Yeah. So the good thing with the character sheet is if you are a new player and you do pick up the player handbook, it has an example of the character sheet in that, and
it's actually got a few examples in the back,
okay.
So you can actually tear them out. Not that I would, but you can tear them out or photocopy them if you want to as well.
But with the player handbook, that can also give you a breakdown of the character sheet. But we'll give you a little breakdown about it tonight. There's quite a lot to it, but at the same time, you don't have to use all of it at the same time.
As soon as you get the base mechanics down for the game, it really isn't that confusing. It's really not. It's a lot more daunting to look at than it actually is to use. I suppose what we're wanting to do is go over a few bits and pieces about the main things you need to understand when looking at the character sheet. Those being the main attributes, the stats, as well as some abbreviations. So I suppose it's probably easy to go over the easy abbreviations like HP and AC first.
Yeah.
HP is pretty self-explanatory.
If you're a gamer, everyone should know what HP is. If you're a non-gamer, non-tabletop gamer, and you're here because it's a brand new interest in the nerdy kind of area, HP stands for health points.
Ooh.
Doesn't it?
Well, I mean, it would be...
I say health points.
Depending on what game you're playing, some people refer to it as hit points.
Oh, I say
myself
health points.
included. I refer to it as hit points. There could be a war here in a minute.
I hear hit points all the time, but I say health points. Maybe that's from...
I don't know. Like I said, depending on what game you play. Yeah. I refer to them as hit points, and I believe the player's handbook refers to them as hit points as well.
My mistake.
So, we'll just...
Either way, it has to do with your health.
Yeah, so basically that's... Once your health gets to 0, or once your HP gets to 0, is when you start dying. Basically, we'll go into the mechanics of that maybe a little bit later. But yeah, HP pretty self-explanatory. One that is a little bit different to Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop games is AC, which is not air conditioning.
Or Animal Crossing or Assassin's Creed.
Or Assassin's Creed. God, there are a lot of ACs out there. So AC stands for Armor Class. This is something I'd never come across until I started playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
So basically the way Dungeons and Dragons works is if you try to attack a creature or a creature tries to attack you, you've got to roll to hit whatever you're attacking. So when you roll to hit, you roll a d20 and you add modifiers and stuff as well, which we'll get to down the track. But you roll your d20 and you get a number. And that number has to beat the target's AC or armor class. So say you've got an AC of 12 and I'm trying to attack you. I've got to roll a minimum of 12 to be able to actually hurt your hit points.
Yeah.
If I get a 12 or higher, I actually get to roll for damage and inflict some damage to your hit points. If I don't roll a 12, it means that I don't actually deal any damage to your health because your character is parried skillfully or dodged out of the way quite quickly.
Yep.
That comes down to some flavour in games as well.
Yeah. So to put it quite simply as well, I feel as though AC is kind of like your own personal shield.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
You've got to get past the shield before you can get to the hit points, the HP.
Yeah, so to hit, you have to roll higher than your shield number.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. The way D&D works as well, everyone does this a little bit differently, but the way its rules is written in the players or the player's handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide is if it meets it, it beats it. It's great because it rhymes, first of all. I love a bit of a rhyme. So basically what that means is if someone's armor class is 16 and you roll a 16, if it meets it, then it beats it. You roll a 16, you still deal damage.
Yeah.
If it rolls less than a 16, you don't deal damage.
Yeah.
Same with spells, with whatever it might be. If you've got a roll to beat something, if you meet it, you beat it.
Yeah. So armor class varies all the time. So it depends what character you end up building. Some characters have quite a low armor class, while some have high armor classes. So this is kind of looking at your tanks compared to your range and your mages. Yeah, they pretty much all range, but armor class is very important, and it's also a type of class that with the HP you can increase as well. Not as far as HP, but when you level up, you can change your stats to alter your
I was going to say, the thing with
armor
class and HP is really the only way to increase your HP is with magic, spells that temporarily increase it, or by leveling up. Yep. Whereas with armor class, you can increase your armor class a multitude of different ways. You can increase your armor class by getting better gear, putting on armor, wearing shields. You can increase it by increasing your dexterity, which is one of the skills that we'll talk about in a minute. So there's actually a few different ways the armor class can go up and down quite frequently, whereas your HP, your hit points, generally stay pretty the same. Sometimes you get temporary boost or temporary deduction, but generally stay pretty the same.
Yep. And the book that is coming out tomorrow is Candlekeep Mysteries. I was about to say Candlewick.
Candlekeep.
Candlekeep Mysteries.
So yeah, that's AC and HP. Basically, your survivability.
Yeah, pretty much.
What those two link to. And depending on what class you pick, what race you pick, there's a whole different number of variables. Will depend on how much AC and HP you start with and how much you get when you level up, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's, I suppose, really important to know what those two things are. I suppose the next most important thing to understand is the skills. The skill types, I should say.
Yeah.
Now, this is where there's, a pretty famous, I think most people have heard it, but I think it's quite useful, the tomatoes sort of saying. So there are 6 main skills that all other skills come from. There are 6 main skills in D&D. So there's strength, constitution, charisma, dexterity. I always forget dexterity or something. Dexterity, wisdom, and intelligence.
Yeah.
And the tomato saying to sort of help you understand what each of those do. So strength is how many tomatoes you can carry. Dexterity is how many tomatoes you can juggle. Constitution is how many tomatoes you can eat without getting sick. Charisma is how high of a price you can sell the tomatoes for. Intelligence is knowing that tomato is a fruit. And wisdom is knowing that tomatoes don't go in a fruit salad.
Yeah. So that's a pretty good little
handy way to sort of get a bit of a sense of what each of them do. They're relatively straightforward, but sometimes stuff like constitution and dexterity, or even the difference between intelligence and wisdom, can get a little bit muddled if you're not, haven't dealt with it before.
Yeah, definitely, and that's a good way to put it, because I know when I first started, I found constitution and dexterity to be quite confusing. I would mix them around quite easily, but it's a good way to think about it that way. It's easy to remember, and it'll probably help you flesh out your character as well.
Yeah. And then from those 6 attributes come the rest of the skills, which I am actually going to have to read out because there's no way I'm going to remember all these off the top of my head. So those are your main 6. And then from there, you can have more in-depth or more intricate skill checks that you can take. So for example, athletics is a skill check that you can make, but it comes from your strength. So rather than saying you make a strength check, if it's something a bit more athletic that you're doing, you might make an athletics check. So those skills are athletics, acrobatics, animal handling, arcana. Arcana, by the way, if anyone who hasn't played D&D before, is basically magic. And arcana, deception, history, insight, intimidation, investigation, medicine, nature, perception, performance, persuasion, religion, sleight of hand, stealth, and survival.
Yeah. So, for example, with one of those checks is if, say, you're in a campaign and you need to jump across a pit. So, for example, you wouldn't use a strength check. You'd do a check that falls under the strength tree, which would be athletics or acrobatics, because you're making that jump.
And a big thing to remember as well, I suppose, while we're talking about checks, is as a player, generally you should wait till the DM calls for a check before you make one. So say if for example, if you get to a pit and you want to jump over it, you don't just immediately roll an acrobatics check or something. You explain what your character's going to do, and then your dungeon master will say, all right, make a check for this.
Yeah.
Depending on how you've described the situation and what your character might do.
So you'll get told what check to make by the DM. So you don't have to figure that out all by yourself. And if you're a bit confused on what kind of check to make, you can always ask the DM.
Yeah.
And if you kind of want to, if you are really good at describing, for example, if you go across that pit, but say your character wants to do a double somersault in the air over the pit, if you want to really get fancy, then that athletics check might get changed to an acrobatics check. So it really depends how you describe your situation, and that will then fit in the appropriate check.
And I suppose the main thing to remember with your ability checks and your abilities as such is the main difference is the main six abilities that we refer to with tomatoes, they feed down into all of your other checks. Now, the reason why it's good to have, like, say, an acrobatics check rather than a dexterity check is because in all of your other abilities, you can have proficiencies. So depending on your character background, your race, your class, a whole range of things, your character will have proficiencies in different things. Now, your proficiency bonus will go up as you level up. So, for example, if you've got a strength bonus of +3, but you're proficient in athletics, you'll actually have a +6, because if you've got a +3 in proficiency, you go 3 and 3 is 6.
Yeah.
Sounds a little bit confusing, but it certainly makes a lot more sense when you're actually rolling at a table and looking at your character sheet. But your proficiencies go into those sort of secondary abilities, which is why they can be handy to use.
And we're pretty much strong believers that even if you're not proficient in a check, that you can still go for it. But it also helps flesh out your character as well. For example, like if you are playing a barbarian that has absolutely no magical ability whatsoever, trying to do a arcana check would be a bit not the great way to do it. You can give it a go.
Well, I mean, I'm actually going to disagree with you a little bit there. You're right in the sense that, if you're not proficient or if you're not skilled in a particular ability, you're not going to have much bonuses to it. However, one of the best things about D&D 5th edition, which is the edition we're talking about, the very popular edition at the moment, is that any character can do anything, really. So the difference being, if you're trying to do, for example, a stealth check and the rogue has a +8 to stealth, obviously it's a lot easier for them to pass the check, because even if they roll a 12 +8, you're still going to get a 20. Whereas if you've got a big, luggy character that's really terrible at stealth and has no bonuses, they could still pass whatever the check would be,
definitely.
But they need to roll a lot higher. So you can still attempt, if you've got a barbarian trying to attempt an arcana check, you can still attempt, to try and do whatever you want. It just, basically what the attributes and the skills do is show you and help you understand your character's strengths and your character's weaknesses.
Yeah. I think it also comes down how you want to role play a character too. So you can do any check you like, but at the same time, in my point of view, if my character had absolutely no knowledge of magical abilities, or studied magic, if I went ahead and said, I would like to detect what type of magic this object is, you could do it, you can give it a go, but at the same time, I feel like it's not going to make a lot of sense to your character.
And to be honest, if I was a DM and, a barbarian character with absolutely no magical knowledge said to me, can I try and determine what sort of magic this is? I would still let them, I'd say, like, yeah, sure, you can do an arcana check, but even if they got a 20, even if they got the highest possible roll, they still might not determine as much information as someone who actually, because as a DM, as a dungeon master, I'm looking into the character's backstories and thinking, right, would this character actually be able to achieve this? Is this something possible? Because a big thing to remember is getting a 20 or the highest possible roll doesn't necessarily mean you succeed in whatever you wanted to do. It means that you get the best possible outcome. Yeah. Which means that you might not actually achieve your goal, but you get the best potential outcome for what you're trying to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good way of looking at it. And I think that, certainly that can be probably one of the most daunting things and one of the most confusing things when you first start it is looking at the skills. When you're creating a character, there are a few different ways to determine what your attributes are going to be, so what your strength, dexterity, and everything is going to be. You can take the straight array, which is 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, I believe. So basically that's just your straight numbers. Actually, I don't think it goes up to 18. 8, 10, 12...
I haven't made a character in a little while. 14,
16, 18. Maybe it does go up to 18. Anyway, so basically what a standard array is God, I really should know that. It's been a while since I've done the standard array. Is you've got set numbers and you can pick whatever attribute you want each number to go into. So you can have one attribute that's not very high and one attribute that is very high. The way I prefer to do it and the way I encourage all of my players in my campaigns to do it, because it adds a bit of personality and a bit of flavour to your character, is rolling for your attributes. So basically the way I do that, the way a lot of people do it, is they'll take 4d6 dice, they'll roll all 4 of them, take away the lowest number, and whatever's remaining, that's one of your numbers. So you do this 6 times, one for each of the skills. Yep. So say if I roll 4d6 and I get 6, a 4, a 4 and a 2, I take away the 2 and that number is 14. Great, that's one of, and you roll those dice 6 times, and then you'll have 6 numbers when you get to the end, and you put those numbers into whatever skills you want. The benefit of doing it this way is technically you could get all of your skills to start at 18, which is insane, very, very strong.
Exactly.
Also, technically, you could have all of your skills at 3.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I allow people to re-roll once, but it could be very low. So the benefit of doing it this way is it adds a bit of personality to your character, because they might be really good at a couple of things and then really bad at a couple of things, and it adds a bit more depth and uniqueness to that particular character.
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of doing it that way. It's very much risk and reward. But yeah, I prefer doing it that way too, because I mean, I find myself to be a bit of a risk taker. If I can somehow get a really high score on something, then I'll go for it.
And to be honest, I think that it's really fun and really interesting to have characters that are really bad at stuff.
Yeah.
Like I recently played my very first character in the Curse of Strahd campaign that my friend was running. He was a blood hunter, so he was really, really interesting. I loved playing him. I hadn't played one before. Fantastic, and he was primarily a melee character. And he had the least amount of HP out of everyone in the party, because I kept rolling to try and roll to get my HP every time I leveled up, and I rolled miserably low every time, which was hilarious, because as a melee character, you generally get hit a lot. I'm in the middle of the action, so it was really funny, because it was this sort of strange dynamic of this character. Like, yeah, he's cool, he can deal damage, and he gets it into the fight, but he also gets knocked down really easy. And I think that made it interesting to have a character that actually has some proper weaknesses rather than just all strengths.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree.
Yeah. And really, that is about the crux of what you need to know starting off by looking at a character sheet. I mean, there's a lot more to building a character, and we're planning on doing some episodes on, where we help build characters.
Yeah.
Depending on your race and class and everything, changes the process a lot. So we're planning on breaking that down and really looking in depth into that, in future episodes. But really knowing the basics of what AC is, what HP is, and understanding the foundations about those core 6 attributes, those core 6 skills.
Yeah.
Really, that's a really good starting block for someone who's wanting to start, getting into the game.
Yeah, and I'm just going to quickly pipe in the next probably 10 minutes, we're going to draw the prize for the monster manual. So this is probably a good time to be active in chat. And if you don't know what to say, maybe tell us what kind of character you'd like us to start off with first. If you want to see us do a barbarian first, a wizard, tell us which one you'd like to see the most, and we might make that one our first character that we build.
Sounds
so
good.
Go ahead and put that in the chat, and your answers will go towards the monster manual prize. But with the character sheet, I think we covered pretty much the basics.
I mean, I suppose there are a couple little things that we could quickly touch on.
Yeah.
Firstly, being speed, pretty self-explanatory, but it's how fast your character can move. And in D&D, so in combat, you play on like mats with grids. Each square, well, generally depending on the mat you're using, each square is 5 feet. So if you've got a speed of 30, that means you've got a speed of 30 feet, which means you can move 6 squares in total. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Yeah, 6 squares. And that's how the speed works basically. Like I said, pretty self-explanatory. It can vary depending on your race and your class. The other two important things to take into account are hit dice. So hit dice are something that you only use when you level up or when you take a short rest.
Yeah.
So if you take a short rest, which means your character just sits down, tends to their wounds, takes an hour to do this, you can roll some of your hit dice to get back a bit of health. Again, depending on what class or race or whatever you are, will change what hit die you use. And if you're level 4, you have 4 hit dice. If you're level 3, you've got 3. It goes off your level you're on.
Yeah.
So that's a slightly different kind of dice that you don't use very often, but it is important to know. And then the final thing, I guess, which is important to know about the character sheet, because really the rest is backstory and stuff like that. The final thing to know is what a death save is.
Now, death save sounds very daunting, but it pretty much is exactly what it is, a death save. So with the death saves, when you are playing your character and you're in battle and you reduce down to 0 hit points and you're down...
All hope is not lost.
No, you have 3, well, ideally 3 chances to get back up, to be saved, to have life again. But with those, you have to roll a d20, and if you get below 10, it is a fail. Higher than 10, it's a save. But the twist on this one is if you get a natural 1, which is a 1, it's a fail. You pretty much...
So if you get a 1, you immediately get 2. So every time you roll a dice, you either get a success or a failure. And there's actually a spot on your character sheet to track your successes and your failures. So in combat, every time it gets to your turn, you make a roll. If you get higher than 10, you get a success. If you get lower than that, you get a failure. Now, if you get to 3 failures, that is when your character is dead. Kablamo, properly dead now. You're not just at 0 hit points, you are dead.
Yeah, so when you roll a 1, you pretty much take up 2 fails.
Yeah.
Instead of, say, if you get a 2, it's just 1 fail. So if you have failed once and then your next roll is a 1,
Character's
game
dead.
over. And
On the plus side, though, if you roll a 20, you automatically pass all of your successes, and you don't actually regain any health, but you don't have to make your saves anymore.
No,
your character is unconscious but stable is how they refer
kind
to
of like
it.
passed out.
Yeah, and that's basically what happens when you drop to 0 HP. You don't die. When you drop to 0 HP, you start to bleed out. Basically, you're unconscious and you start to bleed out. And when you make your death saving throws, that determines whether you do bleed out and die, or whether you manage to hold on and just remain unconscious.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So they're probably the main active things in the character sheet. You also have sections in the character sheet to put down your abilities, if you have any, your inventory, your money, your weapons. Your character sheet is pretty much your whole entire guide to your character. It shows you everything, all your stats, everything that you can carry. Pretty much has everything you need. And the good thing about character sheets is if you like to have it in front of you on a piece of paper, that is perfectly fine. But there's also apps you can use as well that kind of have everything in a very neat app.
I remember what all of them are called.
Yeah, I haven't used the app in a while.
One of the main ones you can use, which is actually a website, but it is also an app now, is D&D Beyond. That will help actually calculate all of the stuff for you as well. And there's also one that's simply called 5th Edition Character Sheet, which I know a few of our friends use, which is quite easy to use as well.
Yeah.
The danger of some of the apps is sometimes it will do some calculations a bit wrong, or they won't have all of the content in there. There are lots of different... There's Fight Club, which is another app that you can use. There are lots of different apps. However, I'm a big advocator, especially when you're starting off, a big advocator of getting people to use a physical character sheet.
Yeah.
The benefit of using a physical character sheet that you've got to actually write stuff down and you've got to manually do the math for is it gives you a much better understanding of how the game works.
Yeah.
Because in an app that does it all for you, you don't actually have to worry about what affects what. Whereas when you're doing it manually in your character sheet, you actually get a much better understanding of, this skill, comes from this attribute, and this is where my hit die comes from. It helps you understand the mechanics of the game a lot better.
That's true. Plus, also, I find the character sheet, the physical character sheet, is you gotta use your brain a little bit more. So I started off using a digital app, and I got used to my HP automatically calculating everything. Pretty much when I leveled up, all of my stats just changed automatically. And when I went to the sheet and I had to work out like quick maths, I was like, oh my god, it's a bit more work to it, because you've really got to track everything and remember to change your stats when you level up. But other than that, I think that I prefer the sheets version. I think that's good.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, the apps are great. They're really handy. They're a great tool to use. They're easy. They sort of do a lot of the work for you. And if you prefer to do that, that's fine, up to your personal preference. I just think it's really beneficial to at least try doing it paper-based, manually at first or at some point. Because like I said, there are some real benefits there that you miss out on by using the apps, I think.
But I think that pretty much covers the character sheet and the dice that pretty much all you need to start with your character as well.
Yeah.
To start playing.
Yeah, I think that, I think that if you know the information we've just gone over, it's at least not as daunting to start creating a new character. It's still a bit of a process to create a character, especially if you haven't done it before, but at least now you've got a bit more of an understanding about the mechanics of the game, how it all works, how it links to one another, and how that sort of looks on a new character sheet as well.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll be doing episodes where we'll cover some character builds. So if there's one you particularly want to check out, make sure you stay tuned every week to see when we'll pick your desired character to talk about. But I think it's up to the juicy bit.
The juicy bit, the giveaway.
The giveaway.
Well, let's not forget, after the giveaway, I'll be doing, my famous D&D joke.
Your D&D dad joke.
I did a couple at the end of episode 1, and I must say, hilarity, absolute pure hilarity, fantastic. I've got a great sense of humour, don't you think?
I don't know about that, but I don't know if I'm just used to it. It's a bit of an eye roll for me, but it was a funny one.
You haven't heard these before. We're doing some D&D themed joke at the end of every episode.
So if you'd like to win the hard copy of the Monster Manual, make sure you've said something in the chat. Could be an emote, could be I love Ben.
You feel free.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to our little drawing thing.
Alrighty. Let's check.
Oh, gotta put it all in there.
You just... Yep. Okay. And we are about to roll it. Who's Ben? What a wonderful guy.
Great husband.
Okay.
Sometimes menacing DM, but
Alrighty. And the winner is... Hopefully this does not pull out Nightbot like it did last time. And Foxy Gamer Girl, you are the winner of the Monster Manual. So
congratulations.
Yeah. Awesome job. And now you've got to play D&D and
you got no
learn
choice
some
now.
monsters. So what I'll do is I'll message you after the stream and get your details, and we'll get that prize sent off to you.
Congratulations. It's a very interesting book for sure. I love the illustrations that they do. They do a very, very good job of bringing the monsters to life. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Are you ready?
Oh, here we go.
Are you ready?
Here we go, guys.
And
hold on to your seats.
I've even tailored the joke. I've even tailored it to fit with the theme of tonight's episode. So now, even if you didn't really know too much about D&D before, you'll still be able to get my fantastic joke.
And he hasn't pre-told me this one, like the last episode.
I knew one of the ones.
I knew one of the jokes, episode. So this one's brand new to me. I'm a little nervous because I'm going to try and not eye roll at this one.
That's right. You'll find it funny. You'll find it funny. All right. How do you ask out a Dungeons and Dragons player?
I might actually have an answer for this one. You take her on a D8.
Oh, you did! You got it. You take her on a D8. Yeah. Isn't that great?
I've never heard of that one, but I was like, it's got to do with...
I thought it was good. It fit because we were talking about the dice. Now everyone knows what a D8 is. I think I'm hilarious. That's all that matters.
Yeah. That was a good one. I actually quite liked that one. I feel like that would look really, really cute on one of those kitschy kind of Valentine's Day cards.
I thought it was good. I make myself laugh.
Yeah, that one was a good one.
Alrighty, well, that sums it up for tonight's episode, I think.
Pretty much does. I don't think we need to touch base on anything
No,
else.
but thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Hopefully, you're getting some helpful tips and tricks on Dungeons and Dragons, how to get into it, how to play it.
Yeah.
Like I said, we'll be going over some more in-depth character creations in the future, so definitely stick around for that if you're interested in learning how to do that. I think it'll be a bit of fun creating some weird and wacky characters together.
Yeah.
And then, obviously we're going to just keep delving deeper and deeper into the all-consuming hobby that is Dungeons and Dragons. There's near about an infinite amount of of topics to talk about because it's an always expanding game. But we have a good time doing it.
Yeah, it's awesome. So we're live every Thursday at 8 p.m. and like Ben said, we cover everything D&D, everything for DMs, newbies, interested players. We're covering it all. But thanks everyone for checking out episode 2. We'll be back next week and we'll see you then.
Thanks so much, guys. See you next time.
Thanks, guys. Bye.